Hello everyone, this is MrSovr and welcome to the new series I'm creating for Java tutorials. This is the first tutorial. Awesome introduction. This is the first tutorial for Java, and I'm going to go over the basics of it. It's going to be really quick and simple. I'm just going to go through all the different things and how Eclipse kind of works. I'm not going to go through everything Eclipse does. It's just going to take way too long. I will admit, I don't know absolutely everything about Eclipse, but enough to program in Java. So today, here I have Eclipse. You just have to go type in Eclipse, and you can find Eclipse Mars edition, which is the edition I have. You have to download the JDK, which is Java Development Kit, and I believe that also includes the Java environment included. But I'm hoping that your computer at least has some form of Java on it, and that you've looked at some form of code, so you can have like a basic understanding of like, okay, I need to get this Eclipse, the JDK, and all the different prereqs in order to program in Java. So when you have Eclipse open, you just have to go over here. I usually do the arrow down, Java project, and I can just type in test to create the project. Here's your little project. Click on the arrow down, and you have the source folder and and the Java system library, which is I have 1.8. You can click on the source, create the class, which will hold your code. You can just say class 1, finish, and in here you actually have a built template of your code, or not a template, but they automatically put in code for you just to help you out. So before we get into this one, I'm going to quickly explain these two little things. Now, a package is basically which folder is this code being put in. Usually there's a default package, or you can have custom packages. Now, Eclipse automatically adds a package, which is the project name. You can have test.production.com or something. Like usually it's like com dot the actual project name dot what is it, like production test release debug or something like that. It's basically whatever you want to name the package is fine. There is a default way of saying it where you usually do like com dot business name slash name dot like production. Now, of course, that's for the package names. Telling me a bunch of errors right now because I'm doing it wrong. But that's basically what the package is. It's a little difficult to explain the package. I'm not going to emphasize too much on it right now. Just know that it's there and there's a reason for it to be there, but don't pay attention to it at this moment. Especially this early on in the tutorial. This probably could actually confuse you a little bit more explaining it right away. So we're going to move on with that. Another thing I want to say, other than just ignore this part and this part right now, but you can see there's a semicolon. Now, a semicolon is put at the end of each line of code to end that line of code, to move on to the next line, basically. It's like if you press enter, it would go to the next line. That's what the semicolon is made for. Now, you don't put it on the end of every single line of code. As you can see for the public class, there is no semicolon. There's no need for it because they have these brackets that contain code within the brackets. So the public class, this is a actual class. A class holds basically a bunch of methods or functions and objects to references to other classes. Now there's multiple classes, ideally in a object-oriented program, which is Java. Object-oriented means that you can create objects from other classes to access their functions. And you classify each Java file for a specific reason. Like, let's just say you have two files. One file is for printing hello world, and the other one is just to start up the program. Now the one that starts up the program has certain functions, and the one that says hello world has one function saying hello world. Now in order to actually access the hello world, you have to create an object referencing to the hello world class to access the that function in the startup file. Now that might sound really confusing, so I know I'm kind of making this really confusing. I'm a really huge expert programmer, so I always like to say really complex things. So I'm gonna give you an example. So this is class 1, and let's create a class 2. Oops. Okay, so we have class 1, class 2. These are two classes. Now, I'm going to explain to you how the public static main function works. Now, this is basically the starting point of your program. Doesn't matter how many files you have, how many classes you have, how many objects you have, how many variables, whatever. This is where the program starts 100% of the time. So I'm going to type it up. Let me see, static void main string args. Okay, so this is where your program starts. And you can only have one of these functions. You can't have multiples. Because this, of course, this is where the program starts. If there's two of them, then the program's going to say, okay, I don't know which one to go to, therefore I'm going to give you an error. So that's basically what the main is for. Now, public means that anywhere in the class or other classes have access to this function. Static basically means there's no barriers of anywhere that this function cannot be accessed or anything. It can be accessed literally anywhere in the program, which is a scary thing, especially when you have like multiple variables that are named the same thing but in different files. If they're static, they will interfere. Now, void means that it does not return anything. So when you call this function, there's no return variable. Now, this may be different in C++ because C++ you have to return a variable in your main function. But for Java, there's no return variable. So you put in void. Main is the actual name. And within these two parentheses is basically your parameters. Now your parameters here, I'm not going to really emphasize too much at the moment. It's basically a string array. And if you're in the command line calling this function using Java, you can actually put in different arguments or different parameters into this function to actually tell the program to do certain things. But I'm not going to really emphasize too much on that at this moment because, again, this is a really complex thing to talk about. Okay, so back to what I was saying with the actual accessing a different class, which would be, in this case, class 1 to call a certain function, we would have to create an object. Now, again, before we actually create the object, I want to go over this one little function, which is integrated with, I don't know if you have to do capital system, or I think you do. Here, let me type it up really quick. Okay, so this little function right here, system.out.println parentheses hello world with quotations around it, basically prints to the console hello world. Now the console, as you can see, I already ran a program. It shows the hello world right there. This is basically what it does. So for now, I'm going to take away that, just because it's in the way a little bit. So system is like the core library. System is like all the different Java like core functions. It's not like I/O functions. It's not network functions. It's none of that, but just core simple functions. For example, system.out.println, which ln stands for line, meaning that there's a return at the end of hello world. So system.out.println just prints to the console, and we're having to say hello world. That's basically all it is. And of course have the semicolon at the end. Any code within the parentheses, oops, yeah. Sorry about that. That was my other computer, Cortana, basically, talking. Yeah, let me just close that. But anyway, sorry about that. Well, that's interesting. But anyways, back to this. So, as I was saying, this basically prints to the console. And when you have code where they have brackets like this, you don't need semicolons. But you do need it when you have a single line of code like this with no brackets. Now, the parentheses do not count, though. You would need actual square brackets or whatever type of brackets they call these. So, again, going back to what I was saying with the classes and objects, I'm going to go over into this class, and I'm going to create my own method. They call it method in Java, and C++ they call them functions. I just interchangeably use them. I should probably use methods to be more correct, but I just call it whatever, to be honest. Okay, so as you can see here, it's basically the same thing, but it's not static, and there's no parameters in here. Now, the main function, you need parameters in there. It's like a mandatory thing. With your own custom functions, you can do whatever you want. Like, you can say an integer of a, where you enter an a for some reason, and it does some mathematical calculation or presents something. And that's how you can do a parameter that way. Or you could do, like, again, a string a, or whatever you want. For now, it's just nothing in there, which is also void. It just means you don't have anything to put into the function. So in order to call this function from class 2, you would need to create an object of class 1 in class 2. So if we were to run this, save everything, nothing happens. So that's why we need to do class 2 Okay, so at the moment we have our new object based on a class. So I'm going to type up everything before I explain stuff just to make things a little easy. I like it how Eclipse you can actually look through certain commands. Right now, let me see, is it in here? I would hope so. Class. Oh wait, I'm stupid. Sorry, my mistake. I thought I was doing the right class. I'm not. That's why. Okay. Well, that got fixed. Now we can find our thing. See, we have the function saying say hello world. Click on that. And now when we run the project, yes, save all or select all. Yep. We have hello world in the console. So this is creating an object called _obj and our class 1. We have our class 2, which holds our main function, where the main function is where all the program starts. Of course, with static, meaning that it's accessible everywhere in the program, and public means it's accessible in the whole entire class, and whatever class accesses, whatever class accesses this class will have the availability of using main. But no function, no class or anything should ever call main, because the program for Java automatically knows to start there. And I believe you'll have an error if you actually try to access main. But so we have our class 1 and we have our object. Now in order to create a new object referencing to a class, now of course the reason why we create an object is because we want to access its methods. We want to access its capabilities of doing stuff. And the reason why we have multiple classes and multiple files, and again, you can have multiple classes in a file, but it's not preferred. And if you do have multiple classes, the second one needs to be private and not access to any other file. Only the class within that file that's public. But the reason why we have all these different classes is because who would want to have one file program with millions of lines of code? And each line in each function or method have different meanings, and it's hard for a programmer to go through there and organize everything, to re-edit things and to debug, and it's just horrifying. So that's why we have classes in multiple files, so we can have an organized, object-oriented system. And that's basically how Java works. So again, going over, we need to create an object, so we use the keyword new. So when we use new, that means we create a new reference to class_1. Now, you may be thinking, well, why the heck do you need this right here? Well, here's the thing. There's actually a hidden function that's called a constructor. A constructor is basically like the introduction code that is being called when you create a new object reference to this class. Now, I'll go over that in the next video. I'm not going over that right now. I'm just kind of telling you just so you don't get confused. But so that's basically how that works. You create a new reference _obj to class 1. So then to access the actual methods to that class, you have a dot or a period. I forgot exactly what it's called, the official name. But you have the _obj, which is the class reference to class_1, dot, then you say the method name, which is say hello world, and then the parentheses. Well, technically I created the method say hello world with a parentheses void, meaning there's no parameters to input, you don't have to worry about putting anything in there. And you don't have to worry about anything getting returned because you're just simply saying hello world in the console. So that's basically a basic understanding of how a Java program works. I know I said a lot of stuff all at once and I was kind of jumping a little bit around, but hopefully you got that. If you don't understand it, please comment below, because if you have any questions, I can definitely help you. Another thing is with Eclipse, it's also called an IDE. I don't know exactly what IDE stands for, but I know that's a technical term of an editor and also a debugger and compiler. The compiler for Java is separate than Eclipse. That's why you need to download the JDK and the JRE, which is Java Real-Time Environment, and JDK is Java Development Kit. Make sure to download those things along with Eclipse. Follow the things I said in the video, and you can start working on your first Java program. Of course, I'm going to do more videos to explain more functionality, how to do things, and even go as far as GUIs and possibly even game development. But thank you for watching. Make sure to like the video, share the video, and please subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it, all the support, especially for you guys that watch the app game kit tutorials. You're freaking amazing. Thank you very much. And this is MrSovr, and thank you for watching. See you later.